Hi everyone, and welcome to Bonnie Carolee Makes Cards. I love the images in Gracie Ellie Designs Family Love. I chose the single iris image to feature in this oversized 6x6 card. The image is Copic colored on an ink blended background. So let's get started with this beautiful digital image. I began by downloading the image and then printing it onto masking paper. This is the first time I have printed on masking paper, and it went through the printer just fine. As I cut out the image, I tried to stay on the line or even a little bit inside the line to minimize white haloing when I do my ink blending. I align the mask on the image, which I have printed on Neenah Solar White 80-pound paper. I used the largest of Simon Says Stamps circle thin frames to cut out my image. I'm using Distress Oxide inks to blend the background, Wilted Violet, Shaded Lilac, and Tumbled Glass. I find blending a background on Neenah Solar White a little bit more challenging, and so I've chosen to use my blending brushes by Tailored Expressions. I found that once I had the first layer of ink on the paper, the blending moved along quite nicely. The Distress Oxide inks take a while to dry. I lay down paper over inked areas where I want to stabilize it with my hands. In this way, I prevent fingerprints from getting on the base. Once I remove the mask, I'll set the panel aside for at least an hour to ensure it is completely dried before I start Copic coloring. For the leaves, I am using BG 72, 75, and 78. Coloring one leaf at a time, I go darkest to lightest. Many people choose the other way around, and I think both are perfectly fine. I use small flicking motions, leaving some white space at the tips of the leaves. The colors I have chosen blend easily, so I only need to apply 2 layers of color. I finish off the tip of the leaves using the colorless blender to blend the lightest color into the white tone. The stem of this iris has layers. When coloring each of these areas, I make sure that I finish up with either a dark tone or a light tone depending on what I finished with in the area that it will butt up against. In this way, the layers of the stem are very discernible. Using the colorless blender, I go over all of the highlight areas just to make them stand out a little bit more before moving on to the coloring of the iris bloom. In my mind, I'm picturing a Siberian iris. The blush of yellow is found on the outer petals of the flower. I start with my darkest tone closest to the center of the flower, using Y18. I blend it out with Y08 and Y02. The remainder of the coloring will be done with B69, 66, 63, and 60. I start coloring with my darkest tone on the outside edge of the petal, working towards the center with the light tone. To create texture, I leave lots of white space when I apply my flicking motion. This iris took quite a bit of time to color. I'll show the complete coloring of this petal and the next one, and finish up with clips to show the progression. I'll pop some music on for just a short while. I cut an additional thin frame from matte gold cardstock. This will replace the one when I cut my card base. I don't use Tombow glue very often. When Tombow glue is left to dry, it becomes tacky. I lay it down on a base that I have prepared with black cardstock using We Are Memories embossing folder. The frame is repositionable for a while. I lay down the circle base on the card just to make sure that it aligns with the frame. The circle base is backed with black foam and I attach it with glue. The sentiment was also printed on cardstock and ink blended with shaded lilac and wilted violet. I attach a few sequins and finish them off with Nuvo Crystal Drops Morning Dew. Thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time, I'm Bonnie Crane.